Hi and welcome to AgriHQ&A. I'm Nicola Dennis. I'm going to be joined shortly by Suz Bremner and Reece, and we're going to have a discussion about the beef export markets. If you're wondering why I'm old Nicky no mates at the moment, it's just because usually before we record, we have quite a long discussion about what we're going to talk about, what will be topical for the week. And and it's usually after we've done that, we're like, oh, we should have been recording that. That was pretty good. So we're just going to experiment and see if that works. I'm going to hit record before the other analysts turn up. One thing I do want to talk about before they turn up is that obviously last night, we're recording this on a Wednesday. Last night we had the announcement that there's COVID-19 outbreak in Auckland, and that's still pretty fresh. So we're not going to be discussing this in this discussion, and any relevant information we'll be presenting in the reports as it comes to light.
Anyway, beef exports. So where does that kind of leave us with, I know, again, we're talking about sort of the lower end cuts are more in demand than anything higher end, again, with the restaurant trade still struggling. So where are we at?
Yeah, well, it's pretty much the manufacturing beef is selling quite well, but it's just going straight to America. And that's because America
Want their burgers.
They want their burgers and the fat trims, which the stuff coming off their steers, like they got a lot more of that than usual because the steers have been killed at heavier weights because they're being killed, say, 2 months later than usual because of COVID. And so they got cheap fat trims versus with our, relatively well-priced lean meat. So they whack it together, boom, you have a burger patty.
And also we're at a time where our supply is really low as well. So, yeah.
And so they're able to make a double Whopper instead of just a Whopper burger out for the same price, basically.
Yeah. Oh, you were going to make a point about Australia, Reece, which I think is important.
Yeah, well, because Australia's killed so tiny at the moment as well. So I think traditionally those US buyers have looked to us and for that lean grinding meat, and now, well, Aussie hasn't got much, we haven't got much. The only option is to get competitive or not buy, pretty much.
Yeah. Because at the moment in our processes, supplies are, this is a quiet time, isn't it? We sort of ramp up into the bull beef in, in a month or so time.
Yeah, real quiet. And most of what's being killed at the moment is prime stock. So you're not getting too many cows and very few bulls coming through at the moment. So, I mean, that grinding beef just isn't really there in New Zealand, at least.
Yeah, and this time of year, you'll see processors prepared to step up prices on cow and bull, not only just because of the export market, but because they need to balance out the mix in the boning rooms as well. So those are hot boned items, the cow and the bull, and the prime is cold boned, and to optimize it, they need a mix of hot and cold boned. So we are seeing a little bit of pricing.
We've certainly seen a bit of a lift in interest for short-term store cattle, obviously down here at grassroots level at the sale yards. And in particular, Frisian bulls have really started, people have upped their game on them, and that'll all lead into that manufacturing market, obviously.
Yeah, and we're seeing a bit of a shortage of those down here, like that, especially the R2 Frisian bulls.
Because they all came to the North Island, really.
They all came to the North Island, or they got slaughtered early, I suppose. So I guess that's going to drive it up as well. We saw the same thing last year, I think, too, a shortage of R2 bulls.
Yeah, though the agents I was talking to last week, a couple guys said there's heaps of really forward, say like 500 kg plus Frisian bulls on quote at the moment. And they're saying that they reckon the price isn't going to go up because there's just too many on quote. There's not that many bull finishers looking to buy this time of year.
And they're pretty heavy at that weight too.
Yeah, exactly. So they're going, well, where's the margin really? It's pretty risky if the guys want $3 a kg for a 500 kg bull, you're probably not going to make a hell of a lot of money out of them. So.
Yeah, and bull finishers, they have their calculators out, don't they? It's definitely one class that it's all about that margin at the end, and they're pretty strict on how they work on that. We've probably seen a little bit more flexibility already in the store cattle markets for the traditional stock because people tend to pay a premium on them. So, yeah.
Well, when the Frisian bull market went really bad sort of during lockdown and just after it, it was basically because the market was out of sync. You guys that always sell bulls at a certain time of year always selling, but the guys that always buy couldn't buy them because they had either, stock that they were waiting to kill or they didn't have the feed. And so it's just bull beef thing is just very delicate balance, really.
But I guess they're looking for, at the moment, they're looking for those lighter, like 400, 450, rather than adding an extra.
Yeah, I think around 450 seems to be the sweet spot where it's forward enough you can get rid of it before Christmas, but it's still, got a bit of growing that you can make a bit of margin out of it. But once you start getting below 400, these discounts come on.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we need to bear in mind is, particularly obviously in these dry areas, they've had a hard year really. So anything that's a bit lighter will be lacking in condition and really are very long term. It's sort of probably pushing out a bit too far to actually be able to see where those markets, the schedule's going to be at. So
yeah, and I think it applies to not just bulls but all classes of cattle where the well-muscled, healthy stuff, they didn't do it too hard through the drought, is selling well, whereas it might be something that's basically identical on paper in terms of breed and weight, but if it's look like you've had a bit of a hard life, then you're losing 10, 20 cents a kg instantly if you're going through the yards anyway.
Yeah, like we saw that here last week at Salford Lodge, where there was a lovely line of heifers that were really well covered. There's R2 heifers, traditional. They were lovely cattle, very short term. They've been able to be wintered really well, and they made a premium over the lines that obviously needed a bit more work and feed put into them. So, and I think we're going to see more and more of that.
What's the feeling in the yards too around like where prices are going to be? Say Christmas time. Are they feeling? Like the lamb guys seem to be quite a bit more optimistic than perhaps we would be. What's the feeling for the beef?
I think people still need to restock, and I think that's really, like the lamb job is leading the charge more than anything. Like everyone seems pretty comfortable with where things are at, certainly around here. How's the sentiment at fielding, Rick?
Yeah, I think everyone's pretty comfortable. I think it's what the grass does, how the weather is in spring's going to be huge. It's still too early to make a call on it, but I mean, what's been selling lately has been making good money. Especially I find it quite interesting the R1 market at the moment. Like there's any steers at around 200 kg of $4 a kg kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a re-entry into a market, isn't it? And it's probably one of the least outlay because people need to get some stock back on after unloading earlier on. So.
Yeah, and you talk to the guys like the agents that are selling stuff through the paddock, and there's a way bigger discount than usual between say the heaviest R1s and the lightest R1s. Once they get to 300 kgs, the price drops to $350 a kg if you're lucky, probably easily below that more often than not. Whereas go down to 200 kgs, like I was saying, it's like $4, sometimes $4.20-ish.
Yeah, see the finishing point. And we could potentially head into another dry season, couldn't we? I mean, I know at the moment they are talking La Nina, but I'm pretty sure they did that this time last year.
I feel
we could have another perfect storm too. Like I don't want to be like Debbie Downer all the time, but it's like if we don't have that, like last season we had huge competition between China and the US, which was bidding those beef prices up.
Yeah.
We'd usually see them start to drop as supply came on around, I don't know, November. But it was just rising from September onwards as China and the US fought for stuff. But I don't know, that was a lot of speculative buying in the Chinese market, and Chinese New Year didn't go the way everyone planned it would with COVID-19. Are all those export buyers still going to be there in the Chinese market?
I think that is the other thing we need to remember is that we last year that was pre-COVID. Everything was pre-COVID, we're in a completely different ballgame. So, yeah certainly keeping us all on our toes, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the export market, it's not the manufacturing beef might do all right, but it's the other cuts, the prime cuts. They're still not selling that well. Like last year, we were selling. Obviously, the competition between US and China sort of bumped up that manufacturing beef job, but China was buying a lot of prime cuts too, and they're only taking about half this year, whereas last year was about 2/3. So we're sort of having to diversify a bit, and it's not because everywhere else is paying good money. It's because the other markets are just a bit of a buffer.
I presume too that a lot of that you'd end up with a bit of a bank of all of that, those cuts and that, wouldn't you? So they sitting frozen for
Yeah, well, I was talking
I
to the
know.
processors last week or the week before around storage. They didn't think they were too bad, but where they did have stuff, it was like the tenderloins for beef, for bulls and cows. So it kind of like the premium prime stuff seemed to be finding a home, although at lower prices than usual. But that second tier of steak and cuts from cows and bulls
Yeah.
was hard to move, because that's usually like your airlines and your pub meals and things. Hey, that's it for us. Just a reminder, you can subscribe to our AgriHQ reports at agrihq.co.nz. There's quite an array of different reports there that you can choose from your sale yard reports, your market reports, your forestry reports, and so on. Ka kite anō, see you later.